Welcome to the Hearts of Men podcast, a journey into the depths of men's hearts where courage meets vulnerability and wisdom embraces integrity. In a world that often measures a man by his outer achievements, this podcast dares to explore what truly defines a man of character. We unpack the challenges and triumphs that shape men's lives, bringing to light stories of resilience, compassion, and unshakable faith. We believe that the heart of a man is a treasure trove of untold stories, powerful lessons, and profound wisdom. Through authentic dialogues and insightful discussions, we aim to unlock these treasures, one story at a time. So, whether you're seeking guidance, inspiration, or simply a moment of reflection, you're in the right place. Get ready to be challenged, inspired, and transformed. And now, to guide you through this journey of discovery, please welcome your host, a visionary leader and a true catalyst for change, Dwayne Dwyer, but we affectionately know him as the Mindset Coach.
Good evening, and welcome to this week's episode of The Hearts of Men. My name is Dwayne Dwyer, I go by the Mindset Coach, and I am joined by these fine brothers here. Up top with me is the Uncle Junior, the Consistency Coach, Mr. Garfield Martin, and below us is the young gun of the panel, Mr. Son of Timothy, the Available Man, but on his ID card, it says Tawami. Get it. Gentlemen, how y'all doing on this beautiful Friday evening?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well. Had a good week, first track meet of the season, so winding down the school year, so can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So another week down, got about 8 or 9 more to go, somewhere around, I think 9 more to go. And we got spring break too, so
yeah,
I'm doing good. Y'all know it's Friday and I'm here with the bros, but I'll probably be doing better had we shouted the name Garfield out like we did Tawami. I'm just saying, he got Uncle Junior and I got,
My bad. I didn't say his government. My bad. I'm sorry. The Uncle Junior, Mr. Garfield Martin. Okay. My bad.
I'm sorry.
Hey, man, like you guys, man, I'm doing well. Had a great week, full week. Spent most of the week teaching lieutenants and ended with today teaching captains. But all of that's all fine and dandy. But this right here is always a highlight of my week, because I get to share in conversation with you awesome gentlemen, and also with the livest chat on social media. So that being said, if you're out there, get in the comment section and just say hi. That way we can give you your flowers now, because we appreciate that you're here. You can be any place else. You can be any place else, but you decided to be here with us, and we did not take that lightly. So that being said, I want to start off with my brother here on Instagram first. Articulated Illustrations. Just kind of give a shout out. He started this podcast on YouTube, so go check the brother out. I call him the voice. The brother voice is deep. You hear me? But he over there dropping science, and you guys probably remember him a few years back because he had a show he used to do called Lessons from the Living Room. So good friend of mine. Good to see you, brother. Welcome to the show. The Rebirth of Nick. Good to see you. Welcome. Robin Brower. Good to see you. Welcome. Crystal Everett. As always, good to see you and welcome. Atlas Keys to Key Realty, good to see you and welcome to this evening's conversation. Shell, good to see you as always. Welcome to this evening's conversation. Staying off the grid, man. I'm trying to get like you. I'm just putting it out there. But good to see you and welcome to this evening's conversation. And anybody else out there, man, listen. Like I said, get in the comment section. Let us know that you're here because again, we appreciate you for joining us this evening. And hopefully, we have a show that you can actually take something and kind of like apply some of the conversations that we're having tonight. Who did I miss anybody? Okay, gotcha. That said, do we have anything else that we need to cover? Go over real quick before we get started.
No, man. Not unless you're gonna highlight some of the upcoming things.
Well, I mean, yeah, this is a light week. So no show tomorrow morning. Of course, we got Bible study on Sunday morning at 09:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then of course TikTok live at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And again, if you have not registered for April 11th, Pain to Purpose webinar, by all means, go ahead and scan that QR code in the upper corner right there and make sure that you reserve your seat because you're going to want to be in the room. I think that's pretty much it for now. That said, let's go ahead and get started. What if the moment you feel like you've lost everything, your confidence, your direction, your hope, is actually the moment life is handing you its greatest lesson? Failure has a way of shaking us to our core. It whispers lies about who we are, what we are capable of, and whether we're enough. In the heat of that moment, when the weight of disappointment feels unbearable, it's hard to see anything beyond the pain. But what if failure isn't the end of the story? What if it's just the beginning of a new one? In this episode of The Hearts of Men, we're diving into the transformative power of failure and how to reframe your darkest moments into opportunities for growth, strength, and clarity. By the end of today's conversation, you'll walk away with the practical toolkit, real strategies you can use the next time you find yourself face to face with perceived failure. Because sometimes what feels like the end of the road is really the doorway to something greater. Let's explore how your worst moment might just become your greatest gift. So, that being said, greatly appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to go through that real quick. And I just kind of like want to start off with what real quick off the top, like how do you define failure? Like just to get this conversation rolling. In your mind, what is failure?
I'll let the baby go.
I don't mind. I would say failure to me is a weird one because everything that I do has a different marker, right? But I kind of look at it like if I get to the finish line and I don't reach the goal, for me that may be considered failure, but how I got to someone else that may not be failure. But I don't look at failure as a totality of thing. I know some people say it's not failure if you keep trying. I don't look at failure like that. I look at failure, but I'm not gonna go because I'm gonna go. I might step too far into it. But if I get to the finish line and I haven't achieved the goal, to me that's a marker of failure for me.
I look at failure as quitting and giving up. If if I'm able and I choose not to, then I see that as failure. I don't see if I wanted to win the fight. I tried my hardest. I did everything that I was supposed to do. Had a good boxing camp, whatever like that. I went into the fight and I just wasn't successful. I don't see that as failure. If I go through all the training and then I get in the ring and I get hit too hard and then I throw in the towel, maybe that's failure. Maybe not. All depend on how you look at it. But I gave up maybe when I could have went further. So I kind of look at failure as someone who quits or gives up, not necessarily not achieving a certain goal. I think it can be if you give up and you quit on it.
Yeah, I like that. I really like both your responses. I like, Getty, I like what you're saying because what you said initially is that there's some information that is in this thing for me that I can acquire. It is trying to, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, it is trying to tell me something. Whether it is the goal was not a goal, whether my focus was in the wrong direction, or is it trying to teach me something about myself in the direction of the goal that I actually have? And Unc, I like where you went with it because it's not failure as long as I don't quit. So I take that information that I learned and I like learn from that information, apply it, and then go back and try it again. And that's just kind of like how I see it as well. Like I don't see my own definition of failure being different than what you guys said. Failure to me is kind of like it's kind of like the universe, the world, my goal itself trying to give me some clues about me. Maybe the goal is wrong. Maybe the goal is not an accurate goal. Maybe I didn't do enough planning as it pertains to that goal. Maybe I didn't put enough work into myself so that I can actually action that goal to such a degree, action the steps in such a degree that it gets me to that goal. So it's a number of different things that I can grasp from it, but that's kind of like how I'm leaning in a direction of failure. I don't see it as being something that has to be absolute. But if you just elect not to do anything based upon what you're learning in that moment, then failure has the ability to be absolute for you. Anything else you guys want to add or suggest?
Um, I would just add, I think that you can overcome failure too. I believe that, you can quit on something, you can give up something, you can fail at it, even for a certain amount of time. And then I think that at a later point in your life, you may decide that, you want to pick it back up. I failed at college the first time. It wasn't that I couldn't, it's just I gave up, I quit, I didn't apply myself. I didn't really want to be there. So I was a failure at it. I went back many years later and I was successful at it. But again, I believe that you can be a failure at something and then at some point later in your life you can be successful at the thing that you failed at earlier.
And I like that you went there. My bad.
No,
I
no, go
like
ahead. Go ahead.
I like that you went there because one of the and I didn't want to step too far into it, but one of the things, I'm not afraid of the word failure. I think sometimes we get afraid of words, and so we use them cautiously. But I'm not afraid of the word failure, and it's just like what you said, right? I get the mantra, if I don't quit, it's not failure, right? Because I can go back to the drawing board. But for me, I look at it as I failed this time. Now let's go get the lesson learned and go back at it. It don't mean that I quit, and that's just the way I look at. I use the word, right? So when you talk about college, I failed at college. I may not have failed a class. I just failed at college because I didn't continue, right? Or I may have failed a class, whatever that looks like, right? But the ability to go back, the ability to learn, because what you just described is kind of what Coach was bringing up earlier. You learn some things about yourself. You listen to what that experience told you about you. Like for me, I'm a college student. I'm a much better student now than I ever was. But I learned some things about me in time, and I grew with it. But I'm gonna hold my mule right there.
No, I like where you guys are going. So, are you suggesting that failure reveals a particular failure, kind of like failure mindset per se? Is that what you're suggesting, or am I going too far with it?
Yeah, failure mindset, and then for me too. Sometimes I look at some failures as a lack of a skill set that I didn't that I didn't know I needed for the thing I set out for. So,
Oh, you got that look on your face.
you do.
I do. I'm a like Gaddy said, I'm gonna hold my mule. I'm gonna see where we're going with this. I'm gonna see where we're going with
Here's
it.
why I asked the question because, like you, I was the second time going to college as well, right?
Yeah.
My first time in, I'm going to be completely transparent with you. I just did it just to do it. I did not have my mind fixed on anything. I didn't even have a follow-on plan after I graduated from college. I was just going to
Mhm.
college. So
Yep.
it was like the mindset was not college ready. Now, when I went back years later, I had a different mindset. I had a different approach. I had a different set of disciplines that governed my behavior. And people who knew me, they knew like when I was in that college mentality between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m., I was unavailable. If you called me and you got through, it's because life, limb, eyesight, something of that nature. Other than that, it ain't that serious. So I was laser focused in that moment. And so that's that. Like I look at my mindset then compared to what my mindset was when I went to school this time. And it's a totally different mindset. And I think because of that, like to me, college was a breeze. So it's like that's kind of like why I went with the whole failure mindset because I think a lot of times we do a thing and our mindset is I'm going to try this thing. We have not yet resolved in ourselves that we're going to complete it, and then upon completion, this is what I'm going to do. So that's why I suggest that. Still holding your mule?
Yeah, yeah,
All right.
yeah.
All right. All
Yeah.
right. Very, very
Yeah.
good. Listen again, welcome to the show. His divine appointment, good to see you. The enlightened one, I can't say that. The enlightened one, good to see you and welcome to the show. And anybody else out there, listen, if you have not hit that like button yet, go ahead and hit that like button because we're about to take off. And go ahead and share it to somebody who you think will benefit from learning a few lessons this evening on failure. So the first thing I want to suggest is that failure is a gift. So we're going to start off with the gift of failure. Now, that said, perceived failure, and I'm calling it that intentionally, and I think you'll see why as we continue to unpack this conversation. Perceived failure isn't just a learning experience, it's a biological catalyst that rewires your brain for greater resilience and innovation. Thomas Edison said years ago, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Failure, I believe, and based upon some studies, failure triggers neurochemicals like no, I always struggle with this word, norepinephrine, profin, whatever. What that word right there, right? It's triggered those chemicals and acetylcholine, right? Boosting alertness and memory encoding by 300%. That said, gentlemen, the question I want to ask you, and we started tapping into it just a little bit. When you look back at the concept of failure, what specific skills or insights can be developed that in most cases wouldn't be gained through success alone? Now, for me, I kind of gave a couple of them already. I talked about the discipline I had when I went to school. So that being said, I want to turn it over for you guys and get your comments on it.
I'll start with resilience. I think that sometimes when you have failure, you develop a little bit of resilience. When you have relationship failure after relationship failure, you can start developing a little bit of callous or a little bit of resilience to that thing. When you're working, when you're in the military and you fail at this or you fail at that, I think you can start developing a certain, like I said, a resilience to it. And I think sometimes that can be a good thing. And I think there's good and bad to those. But I just think that when you fail, especially if you take that failure, you analyze it, look at it, assess it, and then come up with solutions as to not hopefully not go through those things again. I think, like I said, when you go through those things over and over, failure after failure, you start building a certain level of resistance to it. And then I think even when we looking at muscles and stuff like that, when we go down muscle failure and stuff like that, when we lifting weights and we break the muscle down, we build them back up stronger and faster and different things like that. So I think the same thing applies to us just in general when we go through failure. I think we develop, more we can develop more mental strength for some of these things. And that's why I say I think sometimes it can be good, sometimes it can be bad. Because there's also the other side of that is people go through failure after failure after failure, but it becomes very detrimental to them and they can't get over it, and they may stay stuck there or whatever like that. They may have it a little bit harder to deal with. So I guess the skill set, that wouldn't necessarily be a skill set. That's just a downside of it, the other side of it. But the skill set would be resilience.
Yeah, I think this is one of the ones I wish I would have went first because I wasn't going to use the word resilience. I was going to use another word we use, stick to itness. But I look at it the same way, like, and we all explain pretty much the same thing when we talk about failure. Is truly, I failed at this thing, but I am not a failure if I try again. I'm not a failure if I push out, and sometimes the skill set is learning discernment. Because some things I failed at because maybe that's not where I'm supposed to push to right now, and I think that's a hard thing to know because I really want this thing, but maybe right thing, wrong time, or maybe just wrong thing, right thing, wrong person. I don't know, or sometimes the thing is go at it again. Keep pushing, learn the new skill set. I think, and this, and the reason why I use stick to itness because I think when we're dealing with us three up here, we're all of us are three different personnel. We got three different occupations, right? And we deal with people in three different ways. And so failure and our occupation set, right, looks different for us. But I think the thing is when I got into the workplace, every day was something new to learn. And I think that's the thing. When you're going after a goal, when you fail the first time, you learn something from from whatever that market is. And I think and that's what makes this specific question hard for me to find the skill set because everyone is after different goals, right? If I'm trying to get into, and that's why it's important. Someone put in the chat mentorship. That's why it's important. If I'm trying to get into social media, tap into that world, maybe I need to find somebody who's tapped into it and get some insight about it, or fail at it, learn, and go back at it again. Because I'm going to learn a different skill set in that field, in that realm of the social media world. Every time I go back at it, every time I post another video, every time I try to seek more engagement, every time I put another ad, I'm going to learn something that I didn't know before. And so to me, I like the resiliency or stick to itness, right? I like that concept of failure, but I also like the idea of discernment in failure, learning when the failure came because it's just either not your time or not your space. And I've learned that in life sometimes. Like there are some things that I went after, but it was going to hold me back from the main thing. And so I had to learn to let it go. And I'm fighting to do this over here, but I'm sacrificing what the main thing was. And so the discernment comes in there too, at least for me.
No, I like that. I like the discernment piece. I absolutely love the resiliency piece. I'm going to go a different route. I'm going to go with mental agility. I think, and Gaddy, you was tapping, you was plucking the guitar string right where I was at, and then you moved off of it, right? I think sometimes when we come up with a plan or a goal or whatever that looks like, we may have a great plan but terrible execution, or we may have great execution but just a terrible plan. And we got to learn how to pivot. And I think a lot of times we don't necessarily understand when to pivot. We're just going to keep beating our head against that brick wall, thinking that we're making that brick wall softer. And so having the mental agility to not be so fixed to your own ideas and hearing what somebody else is actually trying to help you with, and then have the ability to pivot based upon that. I love the notion that you mentioned mentorship, and I know you mentioned somebody in the comments section actually said that, and thank you guys for that. I like the notion of mentorship because that's one of the things that mentors are really good at doing. I was told a long time ago, if you really want to do something, like find somebody and mirror, because we have these things called mirror neutrons, right? So find somebody and mirror what they're doing. It doesn't necessarily have to be the thing that they're doing. Maybe you just need to mirror their ability to cognitively process problems. And some of us, when it comes down to us processing problems, we struggle because if it doesn't go A plus B equals C, then we start getting into a little tizzy because the equation doesn't work the way I have it written in my mind. But you have to have the ability to adjust when you see a different equation, or go find someone or research how to come up with the solution to this new equation. So I love the resiliency piece. I love the discernment piece, right? Because I really do appreciate that part, because you're absolutely right. Maybe it's not yet your time. We've seen that in the Bible. It's not yet my time, woman, right? Maybe it's not yet your time. It's not that the plan was bad. It may not even be that the execution was bad. It's just that the timing is wrong. And sometimes we have to sit and listen and meditate on what we're doing, what we're trying to do, and how we're going about doing it in order to get to another level of understanding, so that we can execute the task that we have before at hand. So any other thoughts, concepts that you guys want to add before I start seeing what they're talking about in the comment section?
For some reason, I want to keep the word communication keeps coming up in my head as far as a skill that's gained. And I guess when I'm thinking about communication, I'm thinking about the relationships, all of the failed relationships that we've had over however many years, and how many of those have come because of communication, whether that be somebody talking about somebody behind their back, whether it be somebody being disrespectful to the other person. But I think when you do go through those relationships, and you go back and look at them, I think that one of the things that you can learn is how to be a more effective communicator. So I just think that communication is can probably be thrown in there somewhere, just because I think that is a skill that you learn, because I remember, some of the conversations I had in my first marriage, they a lot different than the conversations I have in this marriage, so and even the way that I communicated then at, being married at 20 versus being married at 50, so yeah, just wanted to throw communication out there.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna do a podcast on communication one day, because um, we think we're communicating, but in most cases we don't, right? And so yeah, I think that's a good one. I greatly appreciate that. Listen, I owe Miss Charlotte Jordan a big apology, because I didn't even see her in the comment section until I looked up. So good to see you, Miss Charlotte Jordan. Welcome. There was another one, Quiet Storm. I missed you as well. And God's favorite. Good to see you and welcome. Um, Real quick, I want to kind of bring up a couple of comments. His divine appointment started off, and I love what she say. I believe you learn how to refocus and make micro adjustments moving forward. Keep moving forward after it happens. I look at it as my past. And I greatly appreciate that, because I think the refocus and micro adjustment, maybe I was focused on something that I shouldn't have been focused on. The thing that I was focused on, I couldn't see it because I'm thinking I'm focused. Like, I think a lot of times, when I just talk to entrepreneur space, I think a lot of times we approach being an entrepreneur like an employee, two totally different mindsets. So I have to shift my focus on those things. Shanita, good to see you and welcome to today's conversation. Miss Charlotte Jordan, I think she was commenting on what Gaddy said. That is okay to try again. That is a valuable lesson. And I think sometimes we miss that. I think we get that perceived failure, and then we say, you know what, this ain't for me. It didn't work for me, or whatever. And a lot of times it's not that it didn't work for you. You didn't work for it. Um, Robin says, shifting your perspective from viewing the past as failure to seeing that as a collection of lessons is a profound indicator of personal growth and resilience. Absolutely. Absolutely. Greatly appreciate that. So, that being said, I want to kind of throw the next question at you, gentlemen. The next question is, how might our current challenges be preparing us for capabilities we don't even know we need yet?
Um, I look at it like like resistance training, right?
Mhm.
We go to the gym and we're lifting weights or we doing certain exercises and stuff like that, developing muscles, blah blah blah. If so that way, if a dog chases, maybe we can run away. You know, if something happens and I fall, I'm strong enough to be able to lift myself up. So kind of like something similar to that. What in life it's just certain things that happen, and in a sense it helps us build callous or resilience. So when certain things happen, we're a lot more able to be able to deal with some of those things. So if we are going through this challenge and we're going through this challenge and that challenge, so again we've developed a certain level of resilience. We've learned some things. We've analyzed some data from all of the different things that we've been through. So now when something happens, we may be able to better deal with some of those things, right? So at our ripe old age of the age that we are, you know what I'm saying? We've had a whole bunch of challenges. Like, so I'm just saying, take this current question. It says current challenges. So let's just move the timeline back 20 years. So those 20 years of challenges were preparing us for the stuff that we are been going on right now. The people that may have been investing a certain amount, 20 years ago, maybe now they're able to pull some of those resources out or see the growth that they've had over there. But again, maybe that wasn't a good one. But again, just going back and just going through different things in our life has helped us be able to deal with things that we're going through right now. So the same thing applies now. The things that we're going through, whether or not we know that we're going to need it in the future, if we're going through these things and we learn from them and we apply those lessons learned to our life in the future, even if we don't know what's going to happen, we may be a little bit more prepared to deal with those things when they do happen.
I'm digging all of that, man. So I think we kind of started talking about it before, for me at least. When we talk about the skill sets that I learned through failure, right? I think everything that you go after and everything that you do and every time that you do it, there's going to be new skills learned. And matter of fact, I even just talk about my time. Like, I remember being a young HR guy in the Army, young 42, right? When I first got in there, I didn't know nothing. I got to the chaplain school, and it wasn't but 3 people in the S1 shop and 1 PCS, 1 ETS, and then there was me, right? as a private, having to figure it all out. And I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff, and I didn't know. I'm failing left and right. And one of the battles in the barracks, and Fort Jackson got single soldier barracks. We all live in the same barracks, right? And another 42 came up to me, and she was like, the only thing I could tell you is keep track of everything that you do, right? Keep examples of everything that you're failing at, everything that just keep it. I'm like, but I messed it up, so got rid of it and started over. She said, keep it. And one of the things that I learned is that the more I failed, the more I learned. But I didn't know how much I was learning. I just saw I was overwhelmed. I was young private, just getting hit every which way. I had to learn how to do USR. I had to learn how to do man. I had to learn how to do awards, leave forms, all these forms I'm learning. And my first sergeant wanted to send me to Soldier of the Month boards just because I was 1 out of 2 junior enlisted. I was like, oh, here we go. It was just weight being thrown on me. And I know that that's not a failure, but to me, I felt like I was failing, like I wasn't succeeding at being a soldier. Then I PCS to Fort Hood, whole new different beast. Because now we got a whole shop full of soldiers and everybody's focused on one thing. And the one thing that I did not realize that that I was prepared for was to become a leader in the S1 shop. I wasn't preparing to do that. I was just going somewhere to be another soldier, right? I was a specialist, young specialist. I get here, and while everybody else only knows the sections that they've been working, I've been forced to learn, because it was almost as if I kept feeling and learning a new skill every time I failed at something. And when I didn't know something, I had to learn how to go find somebody to help me, walk me through it. I had to figure out, and there were people there that was helping me along the way. But all these new skill sets, it benefited me in the long run, because it got to the point to where, as a young soldier, they asked me, what sections do you know? Where can I put you? Or where can I cross train you at? And I looked at them, I said, well, what other sections are there? Because I don't really know. I just know the S1 shop. It was just all work to me. They say, but what do you know awards and promotions? I know it well. Do you know so when you move on to that next stage in your process, or that next level in your process or in life, you realize throughout failure, you just been storing up in your tool bags a bunch of tools, and you never know when you're gonna have to pull it out. I've even coming from the guard into active duty, I've faced a lot of challenges, my time and all kind of stuff, getting my pay and my PBD corrected. As a 42 Alpha, I've ran across that 100 times. And every time, nobody in the shop knew how to work it. And I'm not saying I'm the best 42 there was, but until he shows up, I didn't mind sitting in the seat, because that's how I feel. That's how I felt, because there was not an aspect of the job I did not know, because I continued to hold on to everything that I learned along the way. I didn't dump it. I used it. And when I realized that was happening, I delighted myself in the struggles. When it's a new case I never seen, I go figure it out, because I know that I was storing up in my bag something that I was going to need later.
Yeah, you see it too. I know it. Somebody talk about his Yankees hat, so he caught his attention. But I want to bring that up because I love what he said. Good to see the light within. He made a comment and he mentioned spiritual warfare previously, and it's just ironic he mentioned that, because that's where my mind was at. But it wasn't so much as the warfare, because we do talk about warfare all the time. But I look at it differently, especially when it comes down to failure or things of that nature. Something that has something that is designed to improve you, increase you, make you better, so forth and so on, and that is spiritual welfare. See, I think there are certain things that are prepositioned in life that you're supposed to go through, and those things are supposed to make you better. Like, you take the three of us right now, we can go through the exact same thing. Gaddy's going to get what's meant for Gaddy. Garfield's going to get what's meant for him. I'm going to get what's meant for me. We may not necessarily get the exact same thing, but the thing that we get in time and space is what we need for something at a later point in time. I love the fact that you made mention of, both of you really, what it was like progressing as a young leader in the Army to a certain, so forth and so on. But here's the other side to it. It's like you're trying to do it, and it felt like it was a lot of work in the beginning. Like, you're doing this and you're doing this, and it just seemed like it was always something that needs to be done. But then as you got older and you got more mature in that position, it didn't feel that way. It almost felt natural. And I think you've experienced that in every job or every experience that you go through. In the beginning, you're learning lessons. You're learning how to do, right? How do I do this? And how do I do this? And I want to make sure I'm doing a good job. And I want to do it like this. And I want to do and do and do. And that's all you focus on is what you're doing. And you need somebody to come and say, hey, hey, coach, hey, available man, hey, consistency, hey, coach, good job. You're looking for that because you're looking for that validation. But when you move from the doing to the being, then it's like, I don't necessarily need that pat on the back, because the pat on the back that you get proverbially comes from what you see happening in other people, how you're showing up for them, how you're helping them, how you're elevating them and making them the best version of yourself, all through the gifts of the things that you learn. in spiritual welfare. And I think that's key. We a lot of times we like to look at the dark side of the moon, and trust me, it's not that it's not there. But if there is the darkness, then there has to be the light. And what happens when they're not no pun intended, the light within. But what happens when we start focusing more on the light than the dark? It's like, well, this was good for me that I went through this because I learned some things about myself that I would not have otherwise known if I did not go through this. Could you imagine going through life and all you did was succeed? Like, just think about that for a second. You had no bumps in the road, no hiccups, no frustrations, no nothing. Everything just happened, clockwork. And when you see it that way, it's like, oh, well, I did this right. I did this right. Well, what did you really learn? You're not necessarily learning any in the worst part about it, you're not really learning yourself either. That's the worst thing. And so the more you go through these things, you're going to feel that fight that's happening within. My flesh is like, man, I don't like this. This doesn't feel good. People looking at me because I didn't do that well, blah, 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 blah. But then there's something internal you say, hey, don't worry about it. Keep going. Just keep going. Keep doing this. Keep doing that. Try it this way. Do it this way, so forth and so on. Now that discernment that Gaddy mentioned starts kicking in, right? Maybe you'll hear this little voice say, you know what? You went about this all wrong. It's not that what you were trying to do is wrong. It's just that the way that you did it was wrong. Try doing it this way. Or you meet, somebody who has more experience in it. So, yep, I got it. I understand what the problem is. And they come in and they tell you to do this thing and it works just like clockwork. So that's kind of like the thing that I go with when it comes down to this question, because I think it's key when we have the ability to stop focusing on the negative side of it and look at it from the positive and be like, you know what? This right here was actually meant to be that way. Going back to Garfield's comment about how we communicated when we was younger. Yeah, a lot of it wasn't good. I tell everybody when I was in the army, I was the knife hand king. You would get the knife hand in a heartbeat. But I've learned to put the knife away, and then I start talking with an open palm, open gesture, things of that nature. So now it's more welcoming, more inviting, and things of that nature. And it works better for interconnectivity. So that's just my thoughts. Anything else you guys want to add to this before we move forward? No. Got to take a break, so we're gonna see. Did I have anything in the comments? Yes. Bring up Atlas Keys to Key. There we go. Constraints can be seen as catalysts for new approaches. Revisit the plan as we grow and become aware of the need to change upon identifying the what you are currently doing is not working. I love that. I love that. That's that ability to exercise mental agility in real time and don't stay fixed to your way of doing a thing. Learn how to pivot and adjust moving forward. So greatly appreciate everything that everybody's saying in the comment section. Keep them coming. I'm gonna try to pull them up as need be, but I want to make sure that we get through this because, man, it's almost 8:42 already. Maya, good to see you and welcome to today's show. That said, the next section is the law of consciousness and reality creation, one of my favorite topics. Your level of consciousness determines whether failure destroys you or transforms you. And this awareness is the key to rewriting your entire life story. Carl Jung said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. I'll say that part again. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. Statistically speaking, only 15% of people operate above the courage level of consciousness where failure is seen as opportunity. And I will talk about that soon. So just be that courage level, because at that courage level, I think you're at a 200%, 200. Your output is at 200. It's still pretty low, but things start changing at courage. So I want to ask this question, gentlemen. I think this question would be a good one to start off with. What is the correlation between consciousness and reality?
Man, I got it in my head, but the articulation of how I want to say it is where I'm struggling with it.
Just talk yourself into excellent, brother.
So, yeah. So when I think of consciousness, right, I'm thinking of my level of awareness, right? Of me, of the things around me, of my situation, of my condition, So I'm thinking my level of consciousness. So when I think consciousness, I'm thinking self-reflective. But the reality is my consciousness, your consciousness, and your consciousness as a collective. And and I know you said what's the correlation, right? But so when I'm looking at it, I only see a correlation when I'm dealing with relationship, right? And don't beat me up, coaches, right? But when I'm dealing with relationship, because the only way that I can translate my level of consciousness into true reality is either with understanding or hearing where you guys are at in the same space of in your level of awareness, or your level of your awareness or your consciousness in this same space. Then we can start to actually map out what the reality is of this channel, this show, you know, or of this podcast, whatever it is we're doing together. Other than that, I'm living in my own mind, in my own thoughts, right? But as soon as I introduce reality, it now introduces everyone else that's in this space, that's in this in this place with me. Is that making sense? I'm trying to. I'm like, I'm still not articulating it like I want to say it, but
That's why I say just talk yourself into greatness, because sometimes, like, you know what you want to say, but your words just won't come together. But eventually it'll start coming together. So just say it, right? What you got on?
When I'm looking at consciousness, I'm like Gaddy said, it's hard for me to look at this question and not use the word awareness, you know, when I'm looking at the word consciousness. So right now I'm conscious, I'm aware of what's going on. Like in my mind, what's going on is there's three dudes sitting up here talking in front of the camera, and they got some microphones and they talking about X, Y, and Z. But then I also kept thinking about this thing called, you remember when people always just say, you know, if a tree falls in the woods, you know, does it make a sound or whatever like that, right? So I think if I hear it and I'm there, that's the conscious piece. Even if I'm not there, the reality of it is that tree fell and it still made a noise and it vibrated the ground. So the consciousness, and I think how they correlate or relate together, is the consciousness. Oh man, and I think that's why I get what Gaddy was talking about too. It's just like getting it out. So it's like I'm right there, trying to close out my talking point, but it's like the consciousness piece of it is, and how it relates is to the reality of it. The reality is going to be there regardless of whether or not you're conscious of it or not. Now, this is not to be confused with my reality. We not even talking about that, and I don't want to go there. But we just talking about reality, because reality is reality. Regardless of whatever you want to say, your reality, whatever, when that tree fell, it made a noise and it vibrated the ground. So that is the reality of it. Whether or not I was there, heard it, it don't matter. So I think that's how they relate.
I love this. And I love what everybody's putting in the comment section. And it's a lot of great stuff over there. So if you guys are listening to this show and you're watching it, try to do a screen capture of what everybody's saying, because they're laying down some really good stuff. I remember a while back. I don't have it on my desk. I can use this one. I remember a while back we was talking about perspective, and this was on your show, Unc. And to get Antoine to understand something, I held up a cup.
Yeah.
Right, I held up a
One of my
cup.
favorite analogies.
And I told him, I said, you can only see this side of the cup, but there's all sides of the cup that you don't see. But you see this. And I think that kind of helps us to get closer to the answer. Consciousness is one of the still to this day, still a big mystery. Depending upon which version of the science you go at, whether it's physics or whether it's neuroscience. Consciousness exists. Reality exists. But here's the issue when it comes down to us. A lot of us think that our experiences are reality. And the sad part about it, it is not. It's just your perspective of reality. And until we get that part, we'll stop talking about our reality, our experiences, as though our experiences are absolute. It is true to you, right? But just like I said, we can go through the exact same thing and we'll extract different things from it. And the reason why we'll extract different things from it because we have different levels of consciousness. Now, I love the fact that somebody brought it. And then if you don't mind, just start bringing up things if I say something that's connected to what somebody said previously. Um, Now, here's the interesting part. Somebody mentioned previously collective consciousness, and I'm glad you did. Gad, I think you started off with it. I'm glad you mentioned collective consciousness because that brings into a whole nother understanding. The worst thing we can do is respond to somebody when they're trying to share something with you by saying, I know. You know only what you know. And if that's your response, do not be surprised when people stop sharing with you what they actually know simply because your response is always, I know, I know, I know, I know. Okay, well, cool. You know everything. There's no need for me to continue to share anything with you. So now my consciousness makes me aware of the reality that I exist in. This is why you hear some people say, oh, you can pull yourself up by the bootstraps. What they're trying to tell you to do is change your awareness, change your level of consciousnness about the reality that you're in. Now, there's some things that are true about that, and there are some things that are untruth about that. And I'm not going to get into all of the eaches behind the untruth part of it. But it's not that the things that are happening aren't true. I have to change the way I view it. And if I change the way I view it, now what I receive, perception, becomes different. But wait, there's more. I can change it. And instead of waiting to receive it, I can now look for it. And when I look for it, that changes everything. So what am I saying? I'm saying that if I allow my consciousness, and a lot of times we don't get into this aspects of it, and this aspect of it. If I allow my consciousness to become the creator, that means now the human, based upon my reticular activating system, only pulls out the things in the environment that I am looking for. So now instead of seeing problems, I'm seeing opportunities. Instead of seeing concerns, issues, gripes, and complaints and all those others, I'm seeing other things that I can, opportunity. I see, I see advancement. I see, and I'm saying this, and I don't want to go too far with this. I see a a a very a very slight moment to where if I act based upon what I believe the outcome of this thing can be, I can now fold time and expedite my growth. And I think too many times when we look at what the school system, institutions of learning, right? Institute, right? They program you. So you're programmed to be a linear thinker. So I have to go from here to here in order to get to here. Well, why can't I start here and leapfrog here and go here? Well, you can. But the issue is that no one ever told you that. And so you have to create the equation that makes you feel comfortable, that makes you feel safe, and so forth and so on. So now consciousness is the thing that you can use to create the reality that you want. Now, let's go a step further because we just talked about you got three brothers here, right? I have my level of consciousness and you guys have your own level of consciousness. But what if we do like Wonder Twins and unite? Wonder Twin powers activate. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Stop playing. What if we do that? And instead of saying, well, I'm just going to take my ball and go home with it and say, hey, through the collective consciousness that we have, we can start syncing and trying to be on one accord. And what you'll find is that ideas will start jumping into Gaddy's head. And he's like, where did that come from? It came from the syncing of consciousness in a collective field. So that's the thing that we have to become, aware of. And in most cases, we don't put ourselves in the environments to where we can hear someone say that or have someone teach us how to do that. I said a lot. Let me back up and see if you guys want to add anything more to it.
Absolutely, man. And I'm glad y'all started talking because it was allowing me to collect my thoughts even more. But I love this whole part of the conversation because someone said we can't break away from the programming. You started talking about the programming, but it's when we learn how to observe the collective consciousness, right? So I'm listening to you talk about about what your consciousness has revealed to you, and I'm listening to and I'm not just gathering information to say, see, this is true. I'm gathering it to say this is what's going on, and this is what this means. What does it mean that 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 Unc did the thing and and saw a rabbit in the forest? Coach did the thing and ran into some deer. I did the thing and I ran into a horse. Like maybe we might be in the wild where there's animals at, right? That's what that means. So now how we but what does that tell me? It doesn't just tell me that there's rabbits, deer, and horses out here. That tells me that we have to be mindful of our surrounding because we're not in our normal habitat. Right. And I think some people just collect the information, just say, hey, there's rabbit, deers, and horses. And some people say, hey, there's opportunity, but there's also things to be aware of in this new surrounding. And so now I'm learning and I'm growing in this new environment. I'm gaining from this. But something that may be hard to do if I'm only looking at it from my level of awareness. If I'm only saying, oh, there's horses out here. Yeah, joking, might be something else out there too. Be careful of them snakes. But and I'm joking using the animals just because I feel like it's an easy explanation. But I love that you brought in the collective consciousness, because that's the way that I'm able to see, not just see what the programming is, but I'm able to see reality from an objective standpoint.
I love it. The Light Within is talking about Carl Jung, and he's absolutely right. Um, uh, go look at some of the things that Carl Jung said, man. And one of my favorite quotes is that until you make the unconscious conscious, you will. I'm missing that the middle piece. You will something, and you will call it fate. So a lot of times, what he's saying there is a lot of our subconscious programming. We think it is what it is. These are the cards that life dealt me. No, those are the cards you keep playing because those are the cards you only see. When you get to the point of unpacking that unconscious and then rewiring it, then you realize that, wait, I don't have to take these cards. I can deal my own hand, right? Um, Metacognition, you guys hear me talk about it, right? And give me, I'm sorry, Uncle, I didn't mean to cut you off. Metacognition, you guys will hear me talk about it. It's like metacognition is thinking about what you're thinking about. That's the lower version of it. But the higher version, and I say this, and people be like, "Ooh," the higher version of it is when you have the ability to step back. Have you ever stood behind somebody and looked over their shoulders? Well, you can literally do that with yourself. Like you can step back and in the midst of thinking about what you're thinking about, you can observe your behavior as well. And now it's almost like, and in the army we used to call it AAR. Now, once you think about what you're thinking about, not only do you have the ability to go back and say, okay, I had this thought, it produced this behavior. What was I thinking about when I did this behavior? Right. So, exactly. You're tapping into your higher self. Right. And so, what was I thinking about when I produced this behavior? What could I have thought about to produce a better behavior? Like, what was available that I did not see in that particular moment? So, I just wanted to add that piece. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, you good, man. I just kind of wanted to tiptoe back to the 15% piece. Um, I don't want to harp on the fact that it's 15%, but it's just when you're looking at it and you're thinking about communicating with people, um, and why so many people are stuck in a certain place in their life. You know what I mean? We look at social media, we look out at, some of our family, some of our friends, just people we may know of run across in life. And you see a lot of people, you know what I mean? I mean, when it says that only 15% of people operate above the courage level of consciousness, where failure is seen as an opportunity. Like that's that's a very small percentage when we think about how many people are in the world. Yes, that's a lot of people, but still, and just make me think about just interacting with people and why so many people are just stuck in certain failures that, you know, they've been through in their life, whether it was something from their childhood, something they're going through now, a relationship failure, whatever like that. You know, it just seems like, you know, a lot of people, you know, especially like in our line of work, when you with coaching and stuff like that, you see people who are stuck on failure stuff, you know, all the time. So um I was just kind of shocked to see that it was, you know, 15% of people. You know, it's not they don't say a lot,
Yeah.
but do
Hey,
it.
so I want to make sense of it, and I'll show it to you guys, because hearing the 15% really doesn't work well. So let me show this to you real quick. So that 15%, see what a courage is, right? Where it says reason and integrity, courage.
Mhm.
Remember I said we're at most people operate at that 200, that's the cut line. So the
Mhm.
15% is at 200 and above. Most people operate at pride and below. So
Mm.
that's the thing that he is talking about.
I
So,
think you just made it worse.
well, I mean, I didn't mean to make it worse, but it's awareness, right?
Yeah, that word.
We need to be aware of where we spend the preponderance of our life because we get angry, we get mad over situations we can't change. We look at who's in office right now. We find ourselves going back and forth with conversations about things that we cannot change. Stop focusing on that stuff and talk about the stuff that you can change within, right? Change the way you look at things. Like when you change Wayne, my cousin Wayne Dyer, he's not my cousin, yeah, I'm joking when I say that. But he said it, you know, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. That's not just from the perspective of, oh, this is just a cell phone. The only thing I can do is make call. No, there's 150 more different things I can do on this. Well, move outside of that, right? And think about what you can do with your life because the same thing that the same amount of energy that you put in learning the ins and out of your phone, you can put that same amount of energy in learning the ins and out of you and get to the point where you don't necessarily realize how much more, thank you for that, absolutely right. Um, how much more better of a life that you can create for yourself. And that's it. When you hear people talking about creating the life that you want to live, that's what we're talking about. So didn't mean to make it worse. Any other things you want to add, Gaddy?
And just awareness, like you said,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like anger. Like a lot of people.
And it comes from again pre-programming.
Mhm.
Things that happen growing up, right? Things that happen that you never resolved. You know, bad things do happen to good people. I hate to say it that way. And then you get into a position where they condition you they condition you on conditioning you what to think. They teach you this and they teach you that. And you think, oh, it's good to do that. No, it's not good to do that. Right. So you get wrapped up in this cycle. You go from this holiday to this holiday to this holiday. That's programming. That's programming because every holiday moves you to do something. So, you know, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but anyway, just want to kind of put that out. Um, we got to get to the point where we educate ourselves, man. And it's not just educating from this place that we say we're smart. It's educating to the space that you can put it into practical application. That's the important piece there.
And
Go ahead, bro.
you said, "Do you got anything left, Gaddy?" And then you said exactly what I was about to say.
Mhm.
No, but I was definitely because you brought up the education piece, and this was something I became conscious about maybe about a year or two ago. Like, and we all talked about going to college, right? Y'all know I was going back trying to continue on my degree, gaining and all this other good stuff, and I have nothing against it, but if we only rely on what the institution gives us, and that we're laying the groundwork for indoctrination, versus when we self-educate, we start learning how to think about the information gathered in a different light. Because when they give us the information, they tell us where to go. I remember taking history class, American history, a long time ago, and me and the professor were talking, and he's like, "Man, I love your papers." He said, "But I really want you to think about what topic you're going to use for the final exam, because and he gave us kind of what the topics were going to be. And I used the black codes. And I don't think he made it as a topic. And I don't think he liked the way I used the information of the black codes. Anybody who knows what the black codes were, they were implemented, started in Mississippi right after the emancipation, right? It was a separate set of laws for the state for free black people. They never had free black people, so how we gonna handle and govern these jokers, right? My level of awareness of the information that I was reading, I don't think is what he was trying to portray. And so when I wrote my paper, it wasn't about just the information like he wanted, but it was about, hey, black codes didn't really die. It evolved to Jim Crow, evolved to this, and and that didn't stand too well with him. But I still got an 80 because my information was correct. But anyway, the point wasn't my grade. The point was when you get to a place to where you can start to understand information on your own without it being spoon-fed to you. And let's just go on social media right now with everything that's going on with these current events. Everybody is arguing based upon whether they're watching Fox or CNN. Nobody's arguing from an objective standpoint. But I hold my mute.
Stop arguing altogether. I have a thing. I'm not fixing to go back and forth with an adult. That's just it. I have a cutoff. That's just my bottom line. If you can't hear what somebody else is saying, okay, cool. And I'm all about self-education, but here's the other part to it. How do we get from the self-education to collective education? Because that's what it has to evolve there. Because if it doesn't evolve there, then we're missing a whole collective consciousness piece. Well, if you pay close attention to the collective is supposed to be the community. And if we look at the community has been torn apart because our perspective of community has been thwarted simply because our understanding of the family is lost. The family is the nucleus, the foundational understanding of the community overall. So now you've destroyed the family, you destroyed the community, and now everybody want to do everything in a bubble. Most of us live in neighborhoods to where we speak to our neighbors, but we don't really know a whole lot about them. There is no collective consciousness going on in most neighborhoods. It's just collective awareness. I know what they do for a living. I know what time they're going to be home. I know what time they need to watch. That's kind of like what I'm saying here. But then that translates. Now we look from that, moving into the failure piece, because I don't want to lose sight of that, which again brings us to our next question. Because the next question goes a step further. If you could observe your next setback, the setback hasn't happened yet. If you could observe your next setback from the perspective of your wisest, most loving self, what would that version of you see that you're missing right now?
I'm gonna do what you told Gaddy to do. We just say walk it to greatness or whatever like that. That's what I'm gonna do.
Talk yourself into greatness, bro.
Talk myself into greatness right now. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna try this thing, see how it works. When I look at this question, I think about an analogy of I was like, well, what could I use to kind of help me understand? Again, I'm a big analogy. I need something concrete sometime for me to really get it and understand and relate to it. So I'm gonna use something that I hope never happens, and that future thing that future setback would be me losing one of the relationships that I have with one of my sons, right? So if I'm taking this example, that setback would be, maybe I said something and I got in this business too much like that. I did, for whatever reason, we had a setback in our relationship. And that son of mine wanted more distance between he and I, right? So that would be a major setback for me. So if I'm looking at that most loving, for my wisest, most loving self, what would that version you see that you're missing right now would probably be communication. working on building the relationship? You know, are you calling? Are you texting? When you guys are having conversations, what are you talking about? Or is it just about the car and about rapping and and about work? Is it any substance to the conversation? And when we're talking, are we actually building a relationship, or are we just checking the box every week or every couple of weeks or whatever like that? So I guess for me, I would look at it, what I would be missing right now would be that ability to build and not necessarily build, but strengthen that relationship. So I guess if I would just take away that example and then just answer the question outright, I guess I kind of did right there. I'm just gonna leave it at there. I'm gonna leave it right there before I say too much. So that's what I got.
Whew, you on us today with these questions. You on our next tonight, but what would that version of you see that you're missing right now? I might be missing a lot right now. And I'm not walking it. Unc walked it, but I'm thinking, because I often look at, and it's just me, I often look at the direction I'm going, and I try to think in my mind, how am I going to handle these possible setbacks if they happen? And then it's always funny because the setback that shows up is nothing have to do with what I was thinking. But but often I always try to ask myself, do you have the external tools to handle that setback, right? And it's always based, and I think right there is when I start talking about what I'm actually missing, is because I always start thinking in my own head that if I handle the external tools to deal with the possible setbacks, then my internal self will be able to deal with it better. But then I started realizing that mindset was the mindset of a man that was seeking comfort instead of proper adjustment, because I believe setbacks come to cause an adjustment. That's why discomfort sets in when these setbacks come, because discomfort causes you to change position. I think too often we try to learn how to stay in this place, but stay in that old position. Well, where are you trying to go with this, Gaddy? So what am I missing? I'm missing that ability, or that desire, because I think somebody said one time, like, greatness is achieved by the people who are slight, and I'm just using their word. They say who are slightly crazy, right? Because it's almost as if they love the uncomfortable. They embrace the opportunity to get uncomfortable because they know that there's a change that's going to happen on the other side. They know that there's growth that's coming on the other side. And so for me, I have to start asking myself, I think my wiser self will tell me to embrace the uncomfortable. Stop thinking about how the external can make you more comfortable internally, right? Because I'll say in my head, if I lose my house, my mindset is, how can I be comfortable? Well, but the mindset is, well, what's going to change? What are you going to adjust? How are you going to grow? What is that setback telling you? How did we get here? And what are we going to do to ensure that this doesn't happen in the future again?
Here's why I love this question, because everybody's thinking. To me, I think that's the best part of this question, right? And this kind of takes me back to something I said a while ago. I believe that, and man, this is when you start looking at different aspects of different studies, they have different perspectives of what it looks like. And I think in the continuum of time, there is a future version of yourself that is actually trying to teach you lessons that the current version of yourself need to listen to. But a lot of times what we end up doing is we learn the lessons from the past version of ourselves. Well, the past version of myself is trying to teach me lessons and I'm experienced, just gradual growth, slow incline. But if I learn to listen to the voice of me that's in the future, now I get to the point I experience this exponential growth, this steep climb to where I am going to start seeing some amazing things happening. Well, that requires me to think into the future and imagine what it looks like me being there. And then at that point, look back and start considering the lessons that I have to implement now. Some of those lessons that I need to change my disciplines. I need to change some of the things that I'm doing day to day. I need to change some of the people I make myself available to. I'm just being transparent, right? Some of the people I make myself transparent to, I might need to change where I am dropping, where I am allocating resources for the sake of the future that I think that I'm trying to desire. Now, when you look at it, that's the wisest version of myself because he's already been through all of this. He is trying to get me to hurry up and get there. I believe that I will get there in time. So the biggest thing he is trying to tell me is I need you to change the way that you're thinking. I need you to change the way that you're living this life because what you're not necessarily realizing is that you are pulling the strings on the outcomes that you're getting. You don't like the outcome? Change the picture. You have to change the lens of the picture that you're seeing for this life so that you can actually experience that growth to where now, at that point, you have tapped into what the Most High is trying to tell you, what the Most High is trying to teach you. That's that discernment that is needed. Sure, I can discern right here, but where can I get to the point that I can discern the voice and get that download that I need to say, hey, bypass this and do this now. Skip over that and do this now. Because at the end of the day, what we want to do, again, like I said, we want to put that linear equation together. If we put that linear equation together, now I feel good about what I'm doing. And I get to go to sleep happy. I get to wake up happy because I'm starting to feel some things happening. Skip all that. Do the hard stuff. Be nervous about what you're doing based upon the information that you're getting from your future self. Now, the growth isn't a slow, gradual growth, right? The growth is a very steep climb because now it's like, man, I'm just bypassing these benchmarks like it's nothing. We create goals, we reverse engineer the goals, we create these things called milestones and benchmarks, and then those become the stepping stones that we need to execute to get to the goal ultimately. But if I tap into that download, if I listen closely to what he is saying, he may have me skip over a few of those benchmarks, and I might be further along than what I ever imagined in a shorter amount of time. I'm telling you, if we can just wrap our mind around a larger concept than what we realize, that's when we will actually get to, like you said, bro, that's when we will wake up. I hate to say it that way, but yes, that's it. Once you open your eyes to something that you have never considered before, you be like, wait, is that possible? All things are possible to him that believes. So, any other thoughts? Additional? I'm sorry. I did all this inner alchemy while I was in homeless in the slums, and I wasn't able to make it out until I prayed to God. After I prayed, my life changed. 15. Man, come on, man, come on, man. That brother has been dropping dimes all day long, man. Look, shout out to you, bro. Shout out to you, man. And that is an amazing testimony. Thank you for sharing that. Um, any other thoughts you guys want to share before I tap into everything else that other people are saying?
No, let's tap into what they saying.
All right. Who's first? What do we got first? All right. The slow, beautiful growth. I was looking for quick fixes, but my higher self understood that healing is a process. Healing is definitely a process. I don't believe that well, let me say it like this. The unhealed mind perceives safety because you don't want to ever experience that again. But I also believe that once you begin the healing process, you start changing the way you experience life and start changing the way that you do certain things. So once you start you don't have to, I don't think we ever complete healing. I think that's what people believe. I don't think you ever complete healing. I think you get to a better place to where you can move forward in life. Because the scars that I've experienced, they ain't gonna go away. Those scars will always be there. It's always going to be stored away in my data banks, my memory banks, whatever the case may be. So recognizing that those scars are not my identity and then move forward is something that I would have to get into. That way I don't have to stay on the slow, gradual climb. I can get on the fast train and get to where I'm trying to get to. So thank you for sharing that. M Gamble 777. My wisest self would see that the old me is missing the love I should have had for myself. I was way too hard on myself back then, and I felt like I wasn't worthy of God's love. That is so good. That is real good. Um, are we worthy of it? No, none of us are worthy of it. But we can get to the point of recognizing, regardless of us being worthy of His love or not, He still loves us. And I think that's the space to be in. Not looking to, not looking, and I'm not saying that this is what she's doing, right? I'm just saying this for other people who are listening. A lot of times we're looking to validate the experiences that we have, not appreciate the experiences that we go through. So me looking for the space and time where I'm worthy of the love that I would never reach it because I'm not worthy. That's what all will fall short. Sin is falling short of the target, right? And at the end of the day, sin is in your flesh. So we have a sinful nature. So we will never be worthy of His love, but man, we can still appreciate it. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So thank you for that. Are there any more? No? Okay. Yeah, we got to press forward anyway. Okay. Moving on to the next section. Excuse me. How failure builds unshakable character. Resilience is something you're born with. It's a skill forged in fire and failure, and research shows exactly how to cultivate it. I want to pause here because this is where I believe that parents do children great injustices because you do not allow them to go through the thing that makes them resilient. Therefore, when they become adults, life has to teach them the lesson that you failed to teach them when they were kids. Allow them to fail, allow them to make decisions on their own within reason, of course, and then don't rush to fix it. Ask them questions that make them think about the solutions that they're experiencing. I'm telling you, you will start growth in that child's life so soon it won't even be funny. Okay. Um, every positive change involves a rite of passage. Each time to ascend to a higher rung on the ladder of personal evolution, we must go through a period of discomfort of initiation. Dan Millman. 43% of resilience factors are protective, reducing the negative impact of failure, and 19% are promotive, creating positive outcomes regardless of circumstances. I want to jump to the last question in this section because I really want to get to the blueprint. Um, how has past failure revealed a strength in you that you didn't know existed? Gaddy, I love your testimony, and I just believe that you're going to share that now. And you don't have to just because I said it, but it's just the first thing that came to my mind. And what does this tell you about your untapped potential? The second part is the part that we do not do mostly. So, gentlemen, the floor is yours.
I'll start. One of my I'll talk about my first marriage. I'll talk about that as being I'll use that as an example of failure in this situation. I learned so much from that 19-year relationship. You know what I mean? Once I was out of it and went back and, had some therapy, talked to some people, did a bunch of all of the, did a lot of the brain work, you know. And I learned, some of the things that I said earlier. I learned how to be a better communicator with, my current spouse. I learned resiliency. I learned that this was just a season or a time in my life because what people may or may not know that, that's the first and only time that I was thinking about pulling the plug, after I came home from work, and my wife at the time and my two sons were gone. I thought that, I went through a few months period to where I thought that, it wasn't no use in being here anymore. So I definitely learned resilience, and that's one of the reasons why I kept bringing it up today, because that's one of the biggest things that got developed in my life was resilience. And another one of those things was certain things I can't control, regardless of, you know, how close you may be to someone. I have no control over anybody else's thoughts or whatever it is that they do. I can only control me at the end of the day. I learned those lessons after the marriage. I didn't learn those lessons while I was married. I was too busy trying to change her instead of focusing on me. You know what I'm saying? So um the question was, how has can you pull it up real quick? Oh, how has past failure revealed a strength in you that you didn't know exist? And what does this tell you about your untapped potential? It lets me know about my untapped potential is that, I can go through a lot of stuff. I am a lot more resilient, and I'm a lot more stronger than I thought I was. And each time something like that happens, I become stronger and stronger, in whatever that area is. So definitely that untapped potential was, learning more about myself, understanding that, I can't control anybody else, being a better communicator, and, all of those other lessons that was learned in my marriage. So that's where I'm gonna sit down at.
Oh man. And it was crazy that when Coach said that, I got like 101 testimonies, and I didn't know which one he was talking about. But I'm going to talk about just me today. Like, and it's funny. I talked about a failed marriage, and it's been about it's been over a year since my wife left and took the kids with her. One of the hardest things sometimes is when I actually get a chance to talk to the kids. I was talking to my son today. He was trying to add each other on. I saw he got a PlayStation. I wasn't allowed to buy him a PlayStation when we were together, but not gonna talk about that. You know, but he got one now in his room, so he's trying to add him. He's trying to add me so we can link on there. We could talk. We don't but the girls got in the camera. They started talking. They started crying. When you gonna come home? I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I'm home. I'm at the house I bought for y'all. But anyway, after that conversation, even during that conversation, like, and it's almost every time I talk to them, because I already know how that conversation is. Like, even when they were here, you talking about pulling teeth to see them when they lived around the corner. I didn't even know they lived around the corner when they first moved out. That part, but it it broke a little bit in me, and I was just like, man, I'm not in the mind space. At first off, I didn't feel good today, but I'm like, now I'm definitely not in the mind space to get on here and go live and talk. And I'm reading these questions again. I said, man, I ain't gonna have no answers, because right now the way I feel, I feel like old boy from Hustle and Flow. Whoop that, never mind. But that's how I feel. But when I got on here and when I saw my brothers, when I saw their face, something kicks in and lets me know, like, hey, it's time to kick it in gear. It's time because you never know when you're going to say something that can help yourself or someone else in the process. And so it's selfish of me to break down and say, you know what, I'm not going live. I can't do it. I'm not in the headspace. Forget it. But at that moment, I really didn't think I had the headspace to go live tonight. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. But at that moment, I realized, like, hey, bro, pull yourself together, get your head right, and lock in. You got stuff to do, right? And one thing I learned is that I may be on here with my brothers, but everything that so many things has happened in my life that was a benefactor of things that I didn't know that I needed to show up for, but I showed up for. And so for me, I'm like, you have to show up. This is that time and that opportunity to show up. Why? I don't know, but we'll see. Maybe one day, maybe we won't see. But we'll understand it all better by. I believe everything that we're going through and that we deal with. And so even just that failure, just today, I've realized that there's a strength and a resiliency that exists in me that I haven't had to tap into. I haven't had to show up and be visible, available, and to have my mind focused while dealing. And so the benefit of it is knowing that the Spirit knows how to ease you, knows how to comfort you. And then Coach just said, here's the crazy thing. Coach just said something that kind of kicked me in the butt too, unknowingly, but it was just like, hey, I think back on the things that made me resilient, that made me tougher, and a part of it had to deal with some of the stuff that I went through growing up. It wasn't we know back in the days we used to walk around. I was traveling New York City with me and my sisters, yay high to the beehive, right? Like we were tiny. So we were able to make decisions. I get all of that, but it was the things that we couldn't control. The parents' separation, my mother drug situation, the moving out to live with my aunt, the ending up, sleeping on the park bench for foolishness. These things built resiliency. And when Coach made that pause and said that, I had to realize, like, hey, this may be how they build a little bit of that resiliency. May not, it ain't how we want it to happen. It ain't ideal, but I know somehow the Father is going to find his way to get his glory out of this. So
Man, some of you've heard me tell this before. I don't think I've ever told it in this setting. Um, in Iraq, I'm platoon sergeant. I got my soldiers, and prior to deployment, we had family day. So all of the soldiers, their wives and their parents and so forth, they came and walked through the building, came to the office. I shook hands and grip and grin with everybody. And there's one soldier in particular, Greg Unruh. Um, one of my best soldiers, clearly. I thought real highly of that young man. We spent a lot of time together. When I met his father, mountain of a man, guy like 6'6", about a good 275, came and shook my hand and hugged me. And he said, man, my son speaks very highly of you. And I said, I appreciate that. And he said, I want you to make me a promise. I said, what's that? He said, don't promise me that you're going to bring my son back home to me. And, in typical NCO fashion, I said, I can't make that promise. What I can promise you is that when things get, tough, all of his training will kick in and, he'll know exactly what to do. Fast forward, we're in Iraq and, we're going through day-to-day operations, 16, 18-hour days for me is the norm. To the point to where I don't even get to go and eat. They bring me my food where I'm at. And then it happened every now and then, but every time it happened, everybody got quiet and the radio call came across the net. And you don't call people's name, you call what they call battle roster number. And so I'm in my office, but the operations center is right outside the door, so I can hear everything that's going on. And I heard the name, I heard the battle roster number come across, but I didn't hear it in its entirety. I just knew that something happened in the sector. So I came out and I was standing right there and everybody was looking at me. And then the battery first son came around the corner and he said, Smoke, let me talk to you real quick. And I said, wow, what's going on? And so he told me, he said, that's Greg. And I looked at him, I said, Greg, who? He said, unreal. So I came back outside and, the squadron commander was standing there and he said, hey, if you need some time, that's fine. So it was hard. It is hard to lose one of your own. What's even harder is when you have to stand before the entire squadron and be one of the people standing at the podium, speaking words during this memorial. What's even harder is when your platoon get into platoon formation and march up to that podium and salute you. What's even harder is when you come back knowing what took place, frustrated, angry at the world, don't want to talk to anybody about it, and the family want to have a dinner, and they invite everybody there. I got to laugh or something, crying. They invite everybody there, and I wasn't going to go. I promise you I wasn't going to go. My ex-wife said, you got to go. So I went, and as soon as I walked in, all of Cheddar stood up and started clapping. And as soon as I turned the corner, his dad standing right there. And he reached out and hugged me and said, my son wanted to be just like you. That is a very hard thing to hear coming from a man that lost his son. And there was nothing you can do to save him, right? It's hard. It's difficult. But when I look back over that, that memory is always going to be with me. He's going to always be with me. Even though his, physically not here, he's going to always be with me. That's a part of my life that is part of that scar that I was just talking about. It's not going to go away. I don't care how hard I pray about it. I don't care. It's not going to go away. It's a thing in my life that I experienced. Just like Gaddis sleeping on the park bench, just like the sister said that she seen a bad storm and lived through it and then dedicated her life to God. Just like, Unc went through a failed marriage. Everybody has their own thing, right? But the thing is that we have to research it so that we can understand how that thing make me better. And I'm a better person because I knew that young man. That's the first place I'll start, because every day he'll come up to my office and he would talk. We would sit down and talk, and I'm mentoring him to be a better person. And he was talking to me about his family life, his wife, then wanted to start having kids and things of that nature. Once we got back from deployment, I told him, I said, I want you to put in an OCS packet, Officer Candidate School, because I think you'll be better suited to be an officer. Not that you're not a good NCO. I said, but the Army need leaders like you. It's all of these different things. And so when I look at stuff like that, it's like, man, I'm a better person because I knew that young man. Not that he deserved anything to happen to him, but it's the fact that I do believe that the Most High have certain people cross your path, and they stay in your path for a time in the season. And I'm not saying that his season ended because he met me. That's not what I'm suggesting. But what I am suggesting is that my life got better because I met him. So that's kind of like how I look at this. And what I submit to everybody who hears this, everybody has a story. Everybody has a testimony. Don't take the story and keep it as the story. Because if you just keep telling the story, then you're going to keep dragging that luggage around with you. But what you're going to have to do is tell that story and then see how the Most High blessed you in that story. And then always point it back to him, because now that story becomes a testimony. And so that's kind of like my thoughts. Thank you guys. I mean, just for sharing what you shared on the panel. Some of it's not easy. It's not easy to share it. It's not easy to talk about it. You know what I'm saying? But here's the deal. I can have a better conversation now. Because if you guys were with me, I think it was probably about a year and a half ago when I told that story, I was bawling, still in tears, because there was still some pockets that I haven't peeled back yet. Right. But I'm better at telling that story now. And every time you tell that story and you point it to the Most High, you get better at telling that story to where he is the only one that gets the glory. And that's what it's all about. And so that's the thing I share with you. That's the thing I submit to you, because whatever you went through is positioning you for the future that you're supposed to live. So that said, listen, I know we're a little over, but I do not want to leave you without the final thoughts, because that's when we're going to give you something that you can take with you. So that being said, this takes us to our bittersweet moment, our final thoughts. Okay, so we're going to do something a little different tonight. Normally, you guys are accustomed to us diving into it, but I'm going to set the condition and I'm going to turn over to these young men. So first thing first, we're going to give you a daily toolkit for transforming your setbacks, okay? And with that being said, transformation isn't automatic. It requires conscious practice. And we're going to go into a proven framework for turning any failure into your greatest teacher. Now, keep in mind, Henry Ford said that failure is simply the opportunity to begin again. I say it again, an opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. So, that being said, conscious reflection increases learning by 23%. Reframing reduces distress by 40%, and action planning improves future success by 25%. So, gentlemen, the question that you're going to have to answer for your final thoughts, and I'm being a little bit more strategic tonight. If you had to design a ritual for transforming failure into wisdom, what three elements would be essential for you personally? And when we talk us personally, this is for everybody that we're talking to. So that being said, Uncle, you, my friend, have the floor.
Okay, so for me, if I had to design a ritual for transforming failure into wisdom, the three elements that would be essential for for me personally would be these. So I cheated a little bit. So I made all of mine doubles. So you almost going to kind of get six in here, but they all could be broken down or expanded out. So the first one, the thing that I think that you need is assessment and understanding. I think that anytime you go through failure or anytime that you go through something, the understanding and the assessment of what went on is very important. The second thing after that would be the building of your resiliency and your plan. Like going forward, what is it that you're going to do? And then after that, with that resiliency and that assessment and understanding, it needs to be done with fidelity or consistency. So again, those three things would be, for me, would be assessment and understanding, the building of the resilience. And another way to build resilience would be to purposely do hard things on a regular basis. If you do hard things or do things that you don't want to do, sometimes those things can help build resilience as well. And then after that, a consistent, a plan that you're following consistently. And that is my final thought.
Whew. I'll tell you, Coach is working this today, but I appreciate you, Coach, because you made me put a lot in my tool bag tonight, and I hope that it helps someone else as well. So my 3 steps, it kind of starts just like kind of started with, right? But I'm going to use it as gaining clarity, right? Some of the things I put was articulating what happened. Kind of like we do with our AAR, someone put in the chat, right? What actually happened? What was supposed to happen? What actually happened, right? Then the next part for me is what was my role in the failure, right? If I had to design a ritual for transforming failure into wisdom, the first part is understanding the role I played. That means I got to cancel out the whole, it happened because, oh, if she would have showed up on time, or if he wouldn't have done this, or that one had happened. What role did I play? And don't drop none of it on no one else. What did I do? How did yes, that happened, but how did I handle it? And did that lead or did that contribute to the fact that I failed? And acknowledging how all of that kind of played its part, right? Even how that played on me. Because here's the thing: I don't think that I have been ready in my life, I'll say, to realize is that the emotions that come along in the process of failure, also how you handle those emotions play a part in whether or not you fail or succeed, right? And so that's clarity. Then the next part is I call it I'm gonna call it my extraction, right? now that I've looked at everything, I looked at what happened, what didn't happen, what was supposed to happen, what did I do to contribute to it, and how was how did my emotions move around in this aspect. The next part I'm worried about is, we talked about this all night. What are the lessons learned from that? Why did this happen? All right, I did this. So I did this. This took place after I implemented this. Right. So what are the lessons learned? What is the research that I can do to better understand even the lessons learned? All right. Yes, I understand that if I stick this metal fork into that outlet, something's going to get to shaking. But why? All right. Why? So now I understand I can't put anything in there because there's electric currency going through that outlet. So the same thing in this process. What are the things that I put in that I've done that caused this fire to happen? If I do this again, can I do something similar, or do I need to X that out? Right? I need to analyze that, and then after I've done all of that, none of that matters if I don't take the lessons learned and transform it into actions applied. And I think that's when the wisdom actually kicks in. So I'm gonna stick with action applied. I have to create a plan. I have to look at the old plan, look at my analysis of the plan in action, and now I have to look at how I'm going to retackle this thing and actually start putting it into action. Because as long as it sits here in my mind, it's just a thought. It ain't wisdom. But the moment I begin to action it out, now change is coming, and now the process of success continues.
Man, I am loving all of these so far. Mine's it's going to sound almost similar, to be honest with you. First, I believe it's important for me to sit, meditate, do some deep reflection, and I have to be, I mean, just totally honest with myself. I think sometimes we kind of sugarcoat it, and we try to make it sound not as bad as it really is. But I have to be completely honest with where I am in all of this. Like what actually happened, like you heard some other people say, what part of it, like there's some things that's outside of my span of control, but what is it that's within side of my span of control? I do not want to leave the emotions out of this equation because the emotions matter. They matter to me. They matter for me. What emotions am I feeling and why am I feeling those emotions? And then the important part of all of it is I have to unpack the belief that got me to the space and executing what I'm executing. A lot of times in our belief, we have some underlying assumptions that contribute to the actions and behaviors that we do in real time. So when I unpack that, that kind of gets me to the point of realizing why the outcome became what it was. Again, that's just number one. That's reflecting with, like, I mean, just radical honesty. Next, I have to learn to reframe that narrative. This is all about changing the way that we see things, right? Once I get to the point of reframing, now I can start seeing an opportunity that I did not see before. I get to find the value in the lesson. A lot of times we don't take the time to identify the value that exists in the lessons that we have gone through. We may just understand how we feel and go forward with that and leave it right there. And then last but not least, I have to change the way I talk. I have to learn to shift my language. Shift my language here and here, right? If I don't shift it here, it'll never change here. If I'm changing it here and not changing it here, I don't even believe what it is that I'm saying. So that's number two, reframing the narrative. And then number three is the actions that align with the lessons learned. That's the key. I know we talked about, you've seen other people say it tonight. We got to make those adjustments. So the adjustment that is needed is the lesson that I learned from the failure. Take those lessons, apply it to a new action, implement that new action, and then look for the new lesson in that current level of action that I'm applying. So now that makes us go back and reassess SMART goals. That makes us look for feedback from a valued source, whether it's from a coach, whether it's from a mentor, or whether it's from a close friend. But I caution you with the close friends, because some of us have friends that tell us things that they know we want to hear. You need someone who's going to be honest and transparent with you. And last but not least, I got to get to the point of teaching somebody else the lesson that I learned. If you're like, what's it all for if I'm not willing to share it with somebody else? Because I'm a big fan of the whole community mindset, and we just got completely outside of that. So those were my three, and I give them to you again. Again, number one is I have to reflect through radical honesty. I have to reframe the narrative, and then number three, I have to take the actions and align actions with the lessons learned. And those are my final thoughts. Listen, I greatly appreciate you, brothers. I greatly appreciate you guys in the comment section. Man, you guys will just laying it down. If this is your first time here, subscribe to the channel. Come, like Fred, like Craig said on Friday, come back. We're here every Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We welcome each and everybody here because, again, we're trying to actually get to the point to where we share things collectively, right? Collectively, so that we all can be better. I think we're in a time and space to where that is a necessity. And if we're missing that mark, then we're going to put ourselves on an island by ourselves and we're going to miss the boat. Gentlemen, do you have any final words that you want to say before we call it a night?
I don't have anything other than, man, I thought it was an excellent show. But that's the only thing I got to add too.
Hey, I'll just say the chat was lit tonight. Listen, I'm echoing Craig over there. Come back. Like I enjoyed the chat. I was in the chat reading the chat a lot. I had to refocus myself back over. I definitely appreciate y'all. Livest chat on YouTube right now.
That's it, man. I believe in celebrating people. That brother say he moved. So, you know, if you know somebody who needs some long distance stuff hauled, he's your man. Listen, greatly appreciate you guys. You guys are amazing. Continue to do amazing things. Help somebody else. That's the world that we're in right now. Stop being self-centered and do good to other people. That being said, listen, continue to be great. Continue to let the Most High shine through you, and let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody else. And we'll see you guys next week here on the Hearts of Men podcast.